Thank you for joining us for Time Management for Admins presented by Webinars by Rockwell. Our videos are designed to focus on the administrative professional and fit into your already busy schedule and yet not break the bank. We offer a wide variety of interpersonal, technical, and experience-based videos with the advice coming over my 40-year career. Watch for announcements on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube for additional content releases. Let's get started. The world has become a very scary place. I'm sure those scientists who invented the first computer never imagined where humanity would take their invention or how far thieves would go to steal what belongs to others. I don't want to alarm anyone, but to arm you with knowledge of how to take the necessary steps to protect yourself and your data. So unfortunately, we as computer users, purchasers, and consumers of all that is the internet must pay the price for all of the ID thefts, cyber hacking, cyber stalking, and what have you that new criminals come up with each day. There are safeguards that get better every day, but some measures we must institute ourselves in order to keep our identity and our persons safe from harm. Our first topic is be cyber aware. Sometimes just knowing that nefarious persons will be trying to get you to click on something that will allow them to steal your bank account information, your email contacts, your Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram followers list, and a host of others on the job that will make you leery enough to help keep you cyber safe. I attended a presentation some years ago by a former FBI agent who was working as a private investigator, who was local to where I was living, and he shared some of his favorite ID theft crimes, one of which happened to him. And I'll give you the shortened versions for expediency. He went to a grocery store chain and purchased a few items, and he used his debit card. Now, this was very early in the debit card usage, and thieves were just beginning to find ways to lift your card number without you knowing. The cashier ran his card, waited a few seconds, and claimed that it failed. Asked for the card again, and reran it. He didn't think anything of it at the time, and weeks went by, and one evening he was met at his front door by an angry wife, who had just opened their credit card statement, only to find hundreds of dollars spent on 900 sex calls, purchases at adult bookstores, and lingerie stores. He was dumbfounded and couldn't figure out what had happened. So he went to the police. At that time, police were not sympathetic to the victim of cybercrime. They assumed the person was guilty of doing whatever was on the statement, and it was up to the victim to prove that they were innocent. Now remember, he was a retired FBI agent who knew all the local law enforcement, and he was still treated as if he was guilty. He was determined to figure out who had stolen his identity, and that got him into so much trouble at home, not to mention trying to retrieve his money. It took him 3 months to track down that trip to the store and a very young female cashier who had rerun his card. She palmed it somehow and let her boyfriend use the card number for all of those purchases. He told another story about a bank in a mall. On a Saturday night, 2 guys came in with a well-constructed box, painted nicely, with the bank logo and a drop slot in it. It was even padlocked. They placed the box below the night deposit drop and covered that with an out-of-order sign. Most of the stores in the mall deposit their weekly take on Saturday night at closing, so they took in quite a bit of business. The 2 guys came back at 6 a.m. when the mall unlocked their doors on Sunday morning and retrieved that box. Not sure, they knew it was all captured on video, and they were caught. But the FBI agent gave them kudos for such a brilliant idea. The third one was a little scarier. A woman went to a restaurant and left behind her purse. She realized it about an hour later and went back to retrieve it, but it wasn't there. She left her contact info and about 3 hours later got a call that someone had turned it in. She was elated. She didn't need to cancel her credit cards and get a new license. Even her cash was still intact. Months went by and there was no repercussions from losing the purse until one day she went home early from work because she was sick. She pulled up to her house and saw a UPS driver delivering a package to a woman at the front door dressed in her clothes with similar hairdo. The car in the driveway was an exact duplicate of hers, even with the same license plate. Come to find out, they had copied her keys, gotten all of her personal ID replaced, cloned her car, and was causing havoc with credit cards in her name and accepting packages in her own home wearing her clothes. Just one more story and I'll move on. My late husband worked for a large grocery store chain back in the 80s and 90s and was promoted to assistant manager when the store received those newfangled scanners. They are commonplace now, but it was a great marvel that unfortunately required lots of extra bookwork and data entry for every store each week. The store was often busy with 4 to 5 lanes active with 4 to 5 people deep waiting to check out. He had just trained a couple of new cashiers, and as part of the training, he would stay close by, and if they were busy, he would beg just to help them out and make them feel more comfortable. It was great customer relations and took some pressure off of the newbie cashiers so that the customer got better service. It came to light that one of the cashiers was cashing out her family members, which actually they weren't supposed to do, and used a lot of coupons, and they were paying a bill of like $2.56 for 2 cartloads of food. They had double coupons and store coupons, which at that time could not be scanned on the scanner as they are today. He and the other manager spent 2 weeks begging and trying to figure out what was going on. First, she was passing coupons. She accepted coupons for items they didn't carry, let alone sell, and she doubled them. The person was not buying the item. There was no reason for them to get a coupon redeemed. The maximum discount that family member got was $2 per item because they doubled up to 99 cents. But that still didn't explain the huge shrink that they were experiencing. They watched some more days and watched their transactions, and it finally became apparent that 3 cashiers were not only passing coupons, but passing groceries, either not scanning them on purpose or hitting the 0 button on the cash register, causing a beep and overriding the scanners. Once they had the proof, they were fired, and it was reported to corporate that the scanners could be overridden by a key punch. Number 2 is take precautions. It's hard to know where to start to take precautions. But one way is to change your password often and don't have the same password for all of your accounts. I know that's extremely hard to do. I actually have a spreadsheet that lists all of my work and personal passwords with the logins. I've had a name change recently, so that adds a new wrinkle. That file is password protected, and that password is in my wallet. because I don't use it often, I may forget it. You may not want to carry your purse or wallet with you in public. Many cell phones give you a place to keep cards on the back, but make sure you get one that can go through the airport scanners and closes so your cards are not visible or can come loose. Keep a copy of your card numbers, the expiration date, and the 3-digit number on the back, and the customer service phone number to report a lost or stolen card. Cover your webcam when it's not in use. Be sure to use antivirus software installed on your computer and other devices. The article 10 Ways to Protect Yourself from Cyber Crimes by Kirby Allen on cybertakes.com is a good place to start and corroborates the information that I've provided in this video. Our third item is don't click on the link. And I know that's difficult too. If you see a link in a web page or under an ad, don't click on that link. If you're interested, go to a browser and type it in. This keeps clickbait in check, and the ads don't follow you quite so easily. However, the new cross-platform sharing of data is where they track you now. The only way I would condone using a provided link is if it donates to a charity you support, like an affiliate program. The church I worked at used an affiliate program for the Presbyterian bookstore, and that's where people would go to order, and we got 20% of all the proceeds of the sales. Our fourth item is check who sent the email. Now, who would even think to look to see if that's the right email address? You can click on the email address to get the real email address. I recently got an email from an association member that has long since retired, and I'm no longer in the association. We never were in the same social circles, but she was part of my division. But I got this email from her asking me to help her with, quote, something. I checked the address before responding and pulled up her Facebook page to make sure she was still alive. You should always check since they prey on the deceased. And took a chance, and I asked her what she needed help with, only to get back a sob story about her friend who has cancer and she's trying to have people donate gift cards. Nope, that's a scammer. So I checked the email again. The second email had a different email address. Very interesting. So I called them out as scammers and promptly reported the email address and blocked them. I did notify the person in case she didn't know she'd been hacked. We get requests at work, especially in HR, to have staff and faculty members change their direct deposit to a new bank account. They mask the email address so you think it's coming from a college employee, but in reality, it's a scammer. The problem is that we often require a form to make this change with a signature. However, this happened with the college president. So how far do you go to enforce policy that a form is needed when she just sent you an email? Thank goodness there was a question because they responded to it and it wasn't her. We found the same thing happened with unemployment benefits being verified during COVID lockdown in my state. All of the top earning administration staffers receive hits for fake unemployment benefits. Unfortunately for the scammers, none of our administrators were unemployed during that time, and their plan was thwarted. It was scary to note that all of the information was correct, including dates of birth, social security numbers, addresses, and salaries. They must have hacked into something like the IRS website in order to get all that information, but there it is. And lastly, have a plan. As stated earlier, have a backup plan to recover your accounts and cards. Keep a record of your card numbers and all the pertinent details you'll need to replace them. Have scans of your driver's license, social security card, insurance cards, etc., so you don't have to rack your brain wondering what was in your wallet when it was stolen. My oldest daughter, I'm so proud of her, she keeps a notebook with that information, copies of her bills, important documents like insurance policies, birth certificates, and contracts for her husband and herself, including her children. So all she has to do in case of a fire or some sort of disaster is to grab that notebook on the way out the door. You may want to consider putting copies of these documents on a thumb drive and keep it in your drawer at work in case of a home fire or flood. She had a plumbing leak while they were away for the weekend one summer and came home to several inches of water throughout her house. It was 9 months out of the house. They ended up having to do asbestos abatement and go back to the studs. And they only had with them what they had at the cabin for the weekend. They had to buy all new clothes for the kids to go to school. They did stay with their in-laws, but it was very cramped, and the kids had to share a bedroom. Colton was 11, and their daughter Reagan was 8, so it was very tight quarters at Grandma's house. All their electronics were ruined, and her husband's bar in the cellar was too. She lost pictures and her father's baseball collection that was given to her when he passed. I do have a video coming for disaster recovery, so keep an eye out for that topic if you're interested. The 3 most popular types of cybercrime are ransomware, malware, and phishing. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, yes, they still exist, the definition of cybercrime is the use of a computer as an instrument to further illegal ends, such as committing fraud, trafficking a child pornography and intellectual property, stealing identities, or violating privacy. Cybercrime, especially through the internet, has grown in importance as the computer has become central to our commerce, entertainment, and government. So ransomware is a type of malicious software designed to block access to your computer system until a sum of money is paid. Malware is software that is specifically designed to disrupt, damage, or gain unauthorized access to a computer system. And phishing is the fraudulent practice of sending emails, or now texts, purporting to be from reputable companies in order to introduce individuals to reveal personal information such as passwords, credit card numbers, bank account numbers, and the like. Here's some statistics. Get ready to be amazed here. The total malware infections have been on the rise for the last 10 years. In 2009, it was 12.4 million cases of malware infections. In, let's say, 2014, it was 308 million. And in 2018, it had almost tripled to 812 million. 92% of malware is delivered by email. Mobile malware is on the rise, with the number of new malware variants for mobile increased by 54% in 2018. Third-party app stores host 99.9% of discovered mobile malware. More than 250,000 unique users were attacked by Trojan Banker Android OS .ASC Cub malware application. 98% of mobile malware target Android devices. Over the last year, macOS malware has increased by 165%. Malware development rates for Windows decreased by 11.6% since reaching an all-time high in 2015. Malware is still the preferred distribution model and is used 71% of the time. The United States continues to host the most botnet control servers in the world. Over the last year, 36% of these servers were hosted in America, while 24% were hosted in undefined countries. 7 out of 10 malware payloads were ransomware. 34% of businesses hit with malware took a week or more to regain access of their data. And 90% of financial institutions reported being targeted by malware in 2018. Some examples of cybercrime are cryptojacking and social engineering statistics. Overall data breaches cost companies $3.92 million in 2019 alone. Companies spend millions in the U.S. for cybersecurity insurance, and that requires yearly certification of specific safeguards, including a penetration test. My employer contracts an outside company to try to hack into our system every 3 years or so. We do not give them any passwords or inside information, and their report shows us if we have any vulnerabilities like old servers with outdated security and such. Nearly 60 million Americans have been affected by identity theft. U.S. government to spend $15 billion on cybersecurity related activities in 2019 will be up 4% over the previous year. The United States is #1 target for targeted cyber attacks at 38%. The second most is India at 17%, Japan 11%, Taiwan 7%. Very interesting. In 2018, there were 80,000 cyber attacks per day for over 30 million attacks per year. 21% of all files are not protected in any way. 41% of companies have over 1,000 sensitive files, including credit card numbers and health records, left unprotected. 70% of organizations say that they believe their security risk increased significantly in 2017. 69% of organizations don't believe the threats they're seeing can be blocked by their antivirus software. And 50% of the security risks that organizations face stem from having multiple security vendors and products. 65% of companies that have over 500 users who never are prompted to change their passwords. Very interesting. 61% of breach victims in 2017 were businesses with under 1,000 employees. Ransomware damage costs will rise to $11.5 billion in 2019, and a business will fall victim to a ransomware attack every 14 seconds. This is mind-boggling. Between January 1st, 2005 to April 18th, 2018, I know, arbitrary dates, there have been 8,854 recorded breaches. So be familiar with the types of protection: computer security and knowledge, firewalls, antivirus software, encryption, VPN, which is a virtual private network. Education. It's much easier to prevent a hack than it is to recover from a hack. Better passwords and multi-factor authentication. Know your company policies for cybersecurity and internet safety in order to safeguard your company's financials, vendor lists, personnel, contact information, etc., and follow them. Once a hacker has access to your computer, it's just a matter of time before they get on your network and make secondary hacks into your HR information, budget, and banking information. It's up to your IT department to provide the proper firewalls, safe Wi-Fi connections, and to perform backups periodically. They will schedule them nightly, weekly, or monthly, and maybe all three. At this point, a cloud backup is probably being performed monthly in case of a disaster or a hack. My employer was a victim of the cryptovirus going around some years ago. It was a ransomware attack that came through our satellite campus in China. All emails are transmitted through a broker in Taiwan and then forwarded to the intended recipient. This works for incoming and outgoing emails. It was time for grades to be posted, and the email was not sent through the broker. The registrar's office had trouble opening the email and asked for IT's help. One of the technicians found a way to open it, which unfortunately infected her computer files and wound its way through her hard drive to the shared drives across campus. This happened on a Thursday evening and wasn't found until Monday morning. The files were locked and held for ransom. I don't remember how much was demanded, somewhere in the hundreds of thousands. Unwilling to pay the ransom, we reverted to a backup the day before the infected file was placed on our system. And because of the time difference from China to the US, there was lots of discussion about which day to back up to, because I think it was the 26th in China, but the 25th in the US. One day's work had to be redone, but it was much better than paying a ransom. The next week, a local hospital got infected, and they tried toughing through it for a couple of weeks, and they finally ended up paying the ransom to get their patient files back. It was several $100,000 that could have been better spent on patient care or even higher salaries. If we don't have a daily backup, you would have saved it over the last month's weekly backup without a thought and lost all the data and probably lost more data as the virus propagated. Install antivirus software, secure physical devices, update software and firmware, be safer than sorry, have a plan for recovery. Not only do you need to worry about this at work, but at home as well. No device is immune, not even the Apple devices as they used to brag about. The real reason why they weren't tagged for viruses, there weren't enough users to bother developing it for anything other than Windows. There are specific requirements for tablets, phones, TVs, and even home security systems. What isn't helpful is social media self-propagating by adding people you barely know or don't know at all, allowing people to follow your social media platforms without knowing them, and then when devices like Alexa becomes its own Wi-Fi repeater so you can share your bought and paid for internet service with your neighbors who don't have it, and setting it up so you need to opt out rather than opt in. That was a great idea if the majority of the members of society were law-abiding and cared about each other enough to not steal from them. But this actually created an easy way for your banking information and other personal information to be stolen by a neighbor or someone just sitting in your neighborhood if they know how to do it. Remember the hubbub when they were hacking into your television and taking videos of anything that happened in the view of the TV, whether it was in your living room or your bedroom? As far as physically securing your devices, think about either closing the laptop lid or locking your monitor when leaving your desk. It often is part of security policies in your workplace, but you should do the same at home, especially with company in the house. I'm not saying you shouldn't trust your friends, but if your children have friends over, stranger things have happened. The news is full of reports where people were served with no-knock raids for child porn or ID theft, only to later find out that a neighbor was stealing their internet, so their IP address was identified as the source. I've also heard about cases where visitors to a home would use an open computer to do illegal acts, and the owner is arrested and tried for something they didn't do. Recently in the news, Chicago police performed a no-knock raid on an apartment of an African American woman who was a social worker and had just arrived home from work. It was around 7 p.m., and she had gone to the bedroom to change her clothes and take a shower when the door was busted down. She was naked and had 12 cops in her apartment with AR-15s pointed at her. They refused to let her get dressed, and she stood there frozen with fear for over 20 minutes before one of the officers decided to be human and brought her a comforter from the bedroom to put around her shoulders. The problem was she was handcuffed behind her back and couldn't hold the sides of the comforter together, so it just hung open from the top to bottom. After about 30 minutes of this humiliation, they decided to let her get dressed, but re-handcuffed her in the living room while they interrogated her about a warrant they were serving. Unfortunately for the woman and the cops, they were in the wrong apartment and were supposed to be next door. He had been using her internet for criminal purposes and was on parole. 2 years later, they still had not served the warrant on the correct perpetrator. She was not the intended person of the warrant, and the police raided her apartment in error. Her first lawsuit failed because her lawyer was not versed in civil liberties, and the case was dropped. She was recently awarded, I believe it was $2.1 million, for the embarrassment that she went through after getting the right attorney. This all occurred after Mayor Lightfoot declared that they were no longer executing no-knock raids. You can get a small camera that goes right to your cell phone for about $30 through Amazon. I have one in my front window ledge and on my kitchen counter facing the back door. They're motion activated, so you get a lot of junk, but that's okay. I'd rather have that to weed through and delete than to miss the person walking in my back door to steal something. Our two dogs would alert if anyone came in, but if we were not at home, we can still have a record if anyone came in. While I was employed at a financial advisor's office many years ago, we had a satellite office in a neighboring city about 30 miles away. We had a connection through a phone line to transfer data, so they had the same information that we did in the home office. They often complained that the connection was slow and it took hours to run a simple report that would take only a few minutes. Only now it would take about 30 seconds because technology has increased that much in the time. We discovered that a Russian entity had hacked our system and was using it to store French pornography over the weekend and retrieve it on Monday mornings. For some reason, it didn't happen that Monday, and we were able to find it and report it to authorities. As stated in the last segment, it's not just computers. It's all electronic devices, phones, TVs, tablets, and their method of hacking has gotten so sophisticated that a normal act of opening a text or an email can start a program that will infect and take over your device, watch your movements, or pretend to be a known entity. Be careful of the Ring doorbell system. Unless they've fixed their security issues, it was fairly easy to hack in, or the worker at Amazon would watch your family without your knowledge. True case. It may be, it may even be worse, and you can be stalked without knowing it. Apple tiles can be placed in your car, in your purse, surreptitiously at a restaurant or bar, allowing someone to track your movements without your knowledge. If things around you start to make you curious, by all means check out everything and make sure there isn't something untoward happening. Car repair shops or the police can check for tracking devices and will do so free of charge. I've read articles that women have found tiles on the back of their license plates, in the wheel well, under the hood, under their seats. One woman found one in her purse and didn't know what it was. Be forewarned is forearmed. Have a healthy dose of curiosity and/or leeriness. The IRS will never email you, Social Security will never text you, etc. If weird things start to happen at home, a plant out of place, papers moved, doors left unlocked, locked when you locked them, it starts messing with your mind and you start doubting yourself. Instead, start searching for anything that can explain it, including looking for nanny cams or hidden cameras. Check your internet options to see if there's strange devices showing up. People who rented Airbnbs or even a hotel room have found cameras in smoke detectors, clocks, in USB charging blocks in outlets, or even as benign as a teddy bear sitting on a shelf. This is connected to both physical and cybersecurity combined, and that could be its own webinar. So be sure to keep your surroundings and keep yourself safe. Thank you so much for joining us today, and check out Webinars by Rockwell on all your favorite social media platforms. Bye for now.